look at TestNG, that how actually we work with TestNG and what are the features of TestNG and how do we deal with it, right? Look, till now, whatever we have done is that we have written simple Java programs and we interacted with the browser and we tried to manage the components on the browser. Okay, so we haven't written test cases.
సజ్జల రామకృష్ణారెడ్డి గారు చేసినటువంటి వ్యాఖ్యలు
Guys,
4-5 నెలల
please keep your microphones on mute.
ఇప్పటిదాకా ఈ స్టేట్మెంట్ విజయసాయి రెడ్డి గారు సరే ఆయన ఉత్తరాంధ్ర ఇన్ఛార్జ్
Guys,
కాబట్టి
I request you.
సజ్జల రామకృష్ణారెడ్డి.
Okay, so out here, I'm going to create a new Java project and I'll call it as TestNG features. So TestNG is something which helps you to build test cases, batch run test cases, add dependencies between the test cases, repeat test cases, run test cases in a certain order. Okay, and so supply some data to the test case. So all these things is they are done with the help of TestNG. Okay, so Selenium will not help us to build test cases. TestNG is another tool. It's a unit testing framework which helps us to build the test cases, right? So the first thing is that in order to work with TestNG, you need to have it installed on your machine. Fine. So to install TestNG, you need to just go to Google and hold on. Right. So you go to Google and type TestNG Eclipse. Fine. And hold on. Right. You go to the first link over here. So this is the official website of TestNG and you go to the Eclipse section. Fine. And you will get install the plugin link. This one. Guys, please keep your microphones on mute. Okay. You go to the download section. Fine. So TestNG has to be installed as a plugin inside Eclipse. Okay. So that has to be done from this download section. And you see you will have install link and they will give you this link over here. Okay. If you open this link in a new tab, it will give you these links. Look, install the version 7.0. Okay, because this is the most stable version of TestNG. Okay, install 7.0. Click on 7.0 and copy this URL. Fine, and go to Eclipse and go to help, install new software and paste the URL. Hit the enter button. Fine, and in some time, it will take up some time for you. You will see TestNG over here. You select it and click on next of Eclipse. In my case, it is already installed, so it's not showing me the next option. Fine. In case you already have the version of TestNG installed, okay, and it is not 7.0, so you can click on what is already installed link and select TestNG over here. Right, these three, and you can uninstall them. Right, and install the 7.0 again the way I told you. Okay, so once you have installed TestNG, your Eclipse will restart. Maybe you will see an error in between. just ignore that error. Okay, so when Eclipse restarts, TestNG will be installed. If you go to the source folder over here, under the source folder, I will make a new package. Hold on. Yeah, under the source folder, I will make a new package and I'll call it as test cases. Right. So a package is like a folder inside a folder. So under the source folder, I created a folder test cases. Right. So let me make a very simple test. Okay. Suppose shop mobile. So in TestNG, you don't have, sorry, sorry. In TestNG, you don't have any, uh, you know, main function. Public static void main. Okay, and that is not there in TestNG. You have annotations like at the rate test annotation. Okay, and I will write over here public void select mobile. Okay, so at the rate test is known as annotation. If you move the mouse over it, it will give you the option add TestNG library. In case TestNG is successfully installed, then you get the option add TestNG library. Okay, so you add this library. This library will come up over here. It's got nothing but few jars of TestNG. Okay, and then you move the mouse over the error. You will get the option to import the test annotation. So you import it. Right. So this is your select mobile test, and you have imported the test annotation, and inside it, I'll just write like this, that is selecting test mobile. Right. In order to run this test, you can right click, select the option run as. In run configurations, you will have to go and you will have to select a test ng from here. Okay. So like in my case, I already have the settings done. So I'm getting the option TestNG test. Okay, so when you click on this, you will see that it runs and it prints selecting best mobile, and moreover, it tells you that total test runs are 1, passes are 1, and failures are 0 and skips are 0. So basically it represents this annotation. It represents that this particular function is your test case. There is no main function. Directly the control comes into at the rate test annotation of the class. You can have multiple tests like at the rate test, public void verify details, say. Okay, verify cart details, and you can write over here Okay, and you can have multiple test annotation functions. Okay, each test annotation function will be considered as a different test case. Fine. When you run this, you see that, hold on, you see that it says total test runs are 3. In the diagrammatic, if you click on this tab, you'll also get a diagrammatic output. The problem over here is that the checkout function is running in the very beginning. Then select mobile and then verify card details. If you look at the console, it prints checking out first, the last function, then selecting best mobile, then the first function, and then the second function, verifying card details. Look, the thing is, you cannot uh, you cannot decide the order. Okay, TestNG has its own order. Don't think that the test annotations will be executed from top to bottom. No, TestNG has got its own order of executing the test cases, right? So you have to mention over here, you can mention, in order to change that order, you can mention the priority, that this is my priority 1 test in the bracket like this. This is my priority 2 test, and this is the priority 3 test. Now, when you run it, you see that the order is maintained. But I don't prefer to give the priorities like this when I build my project, okay? Because sometimes, sometimes you have to, in one test case, maybe this function is at priority 2, but in the other flow, this function I want it at priority 4. So it creates a problem. So I'll give you the solution for that as well. But if you have a simple set of test cases to run, you can prioritize them like this. Okay, fine. Now moving ahead, you can pass or fail a test as well. Okay, now in testing, what do we have? We have some expected value. Okay, and we have some actual value which is there in the application. And we have to compare the expected value with some actual value, maybe the expected title of the page with the actual title of the page, or expected text on the button with the actual text on the button. Fine. So we have to compare that. Fine. So for that, we use assertions. Okay, in TestNG, we use assertions. Right. So you write over here, assert dot assert equals. So this will import the assert class. Make sure the assert class is imported from TestNG. Sometimes it is imported from JUnit. JUnit is another unit testing framework similar to TestNG. Okay, not exactly same, but similar to TestNG. It is used with Selenium as well, but TestNG is more famous as TestNG has got better features. Right. So make sure assert class is imported from org.testng package. Fine. And you can give some actual and expected values. Say I write over here A, the actual value will come up from the application, maybe driver dot find element dot get title get text, right? An expected value will be coming up from maybe an Excel file or a JSON file, right? I compare A with A, right? When I run this, it everything runs fine. There are three tests, zero failures. But if I compare A with A1, you will observe that it says total tests runs are 3 and failures are 1. So there is one test which has failed. If you go to the results, see select mobile is not in green. It is saying that it expected A1 but found A. So select mobile over here has failed. So you can fail a test with the help of assertion. There is another assertion command, right? You can write assert dot assert true. Assert true means that whatever condition you are giving over here, the result of that condition should come out to be true. For example, I write 4 greater than 2, and this message is nothing but your custom error message. Okay, so I write assert dot assert true 4 greater than 2. So when you run this, it prints. Hold on. It is not printing anything, right? It is not giving you any error because 4 greater than 2 is true. But if I write 4 greater than 12, which becomes false, right? And when you run this, it will throw an error, a failure, right? And in the results, custom error message, you will see. Okay, did not expect to find. Okay, custom error message. You see this message, it comes up in the reports as well. Right. So assert true whatever condition out here I can give a condition something like say we had made a function is element present. I can call that function. So if that function returns me false, I can throw a custom message that element not found. Right. Similarly,
Hi Ashish, just a question. I go to xyz.com and I want to see if the title of the page is there and it's printing correctly, as in the name is correct. So I cannot use I cannot use either just dot assert true or dot assert equals. So how can I like check that?
you'll have to use assert equals over there. In the actual title, you'll have to write driver.getTitle, and in the expected one, you will have to give the title which you're expecting.
Okay, so the is present would definitely be there if it's printing the name. So that is why.
I couldn't get you.
Yeah, I mean, if we can verify that actual text and the text that we want to check are already there, so we do not have to check for if the printing title is true or not. So that is why.
Look, suppose the title of the page is title 1. Okay, right. So you will have to write like this. That is, instead of A, you will have to write driver dot get title command. I don't have driver over here, so it's giving me an error. And instead of A1, you will have to give the actual title which you are expecting. Maybe
Okay, got it,
this,
Ashish. Got it.
okay. So you'll have to do like this, right? Now, sometimes you are very sure that the test has failed. Okay, maybe you are on a page which you never wanted to be, or maybe you get some error like 500 internal server error, or something happens that you're sure that the test has failed, so you can directly fail the test by writing assert dot fail command and you give some error message like 500 server error. So when you run this, it will fail the test and you will see that it's printing 500 server error. Okay, so this is how you work with assertions. But you know, assertions, they are hard assertions. If I just print A and B, okay, and when you run this code, you will see that A is printed, but B is not printed. Okay, the line on which assertion fails, the program will or the test will stop on that line. The next test will start after that. Okay, so the hard assertion, if it is failing, all these three, it will make the test stop. It is like a critical failure. Sometimes in some tests or in some scenarios, you don't have to stop the test. You have to just carry forward the test case and report the errors. Okay, maybe you want to report multiple errors. Right, you say that fine if the title of the page is not matching. It's not a very critical error. You should report that error, but you should continue forward. And in next lines, if you get more errors, you should be able to report them as well. So in non-critical manner. So these are hard assertions. They won't do that. Okay, for that we have got soft assertions and in test cases package, I'll create a new class known as soft assert example. Right, so you create the
You is
object
seeing
of,
the main.
oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking something else. Okay, sorry. At the test public void test A. Right. So a soft assert is a class. Okay, you create the object of that particular class. Right. And you can have multiple validations like soft assert dot assert equals A with A, A with B. So this is going to fail. Alright. Then soft assert dot assert true. Some condition 4 greater than 3 with some error message. Okay, so this is not going to fail, and if you write 4 greater than 13, so this is going to fail. So assert equals is also there, assert true is also there. So this is going to fail. And you can directly fail the test as well, mentioning some failure message. So this is also going to fail. So with soft assert, you can report multiple failures. It's like a bag. It will keep on collecting the failures in the bag. And when you run this, you expect 3 failures to come up now. And if you look at the output, you get 0 failures. You were expecting 3 failures. It is saying 0. It's saying 0 failures because in soft assert, it is mandatory to write soft assert dot assert all. Okay, and when you run this code, now it shows one failure, but in that one failure, you will have all the 3 failure messages. Okay, so this line does the magic. It actually reports all the 3 failures in the test in the reports. So you can have multiple failures in a test as well. So soft assertion is like a bag, it will keep on collecting them and you can report in the end. But however, if you write assert dot fail, a hard assertion in between. So this won't report the soft assert failures because this thing will simply stop the test. This line will not execute. So if you run this code, you will only get the message failed. You won't get failure for A and B. So I don't prefer to use hard assertions along with soft assertions. If there is a critical failure in between,
Ashish, can you please explain assert dot fail once again? I'm not really sure if I got the concept.
assert.fail will stop the program over here. Once it stops the test over here, this line is not executed. So the soft
I got
assertions
this
will,
point for the soft assertion, but in as in what assert dot fail does, it's a hard assertion. I got it, but what's the use of this in a test ng? As in when do I use assert dot fail?
suppose there is a critical failure while executing the test and you want to just stop the test and you use assert.fail. Okay, so it will just stop the test by reporting this error message, but it won't report the failures, the soft failures which happened before the hard assertion. This A is not equal to B. It was there in a soft assert. It won't report that because this line never gets executed.
But dot fail function just has a string message attached to it and
So I
no.
also want this failure to be reported, right?
Yeah.
So it
Okay.
won't come.
Okay, got your point now.
Okay, so this will only report one failure. Okay, I never get this failure reported. So don't mix and match hard assertions and soft assertions. Okay, if you want,
Ashish,
yeah,
Ashish, if you have written soft assert dot assert equal or soft assert dot assert true, and after that, if you have not written assert dot fail and just written assert dot assert all, then also the failure will be
yeah,
displayed.
then also it will work. These are just assertion methods.
No, like if you need to display the failure message, you just need to write assert dot assert all. Soft
Yeah,
assert
this
assert.
will this generally we write it in the end so that all the failures are reported in the report.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So you should not mix your soft assert commands and hard assertions. Right. Okay, I will tell you. I'll tell you a workaround for this. Right. So generally we use soft assertions, and if it is a critical failure, we write this line over there. I will tell you. Okay, because this is the line which does the magic. It reports all the failures in the test. Okay, right. And it stops the test on this line. So we generally write it in the end. Okay, right. Now, if you go back to your shop mobile test, and if I'm running this, then shop mobile test is select mobile is executing, and it is reporting say 500 internal server error, right? And it is failing. Okay, now in case the select mobile test is failing, the other two tests should not be executing, because if you're not able to select the mobile, then you should not be able to verify. You should not be running verification of card details and checking out, right? So we can introduce dependencies between the test. You can write over here that this is depends on methods, and in array you can give the methods, that is it is depending on select mobile. Okay, and checkout is depending on verify cart details. Okay, right. So when you run this, you will see that the other two tests have skipped. Okay, the other two tests verify card details and checkout, they are skipping, and select mobile is showing 500 server error. Right. So if you want, you can directly skip the test as well. At times, what happens is that say you have got 100 test cases and you just want to run 20 out of them. So in order to skip a test, you can directly, you know, have a flag. We can keep the flag in some external file, okay, like an Excel file or JSON file. I'll tell you, and you will read this flag for this particular test from that file, and you can write if the flag is equal to yes, then you can directly skip the test. You can write deliberately skipping the test. You can write through new skip exception with some message. You can write over here, say skip flag was yes. Then I know I'm hard coding the value over here. This value is generally read from some external file. Okay. And when you run this, you will see that in this case, select mobile is skipping. Because it is skipping the other two tests which were dependent on, this one also get skipped. Okay, right?
Ashish, so which tests would be skipped? Only which are dependent on
They are
this
dependent
particular.
ones. If this test fails,
Right.
if I keep this flag to no, and this test will execute and fail. So if it is failing, then also the other two are skipping. Okay, so the dependent tests will definitely skip. But if you want to skip a test case directly, deliberately, then you can use this one. Throw new skip exception.
Yes. So my question is like, which tests immediately next priority tests would be skipped?
They will be skipped if the dependent test is failing or skipping.
Okay. All right.
So now this shop mobile is done, soft assertion, right? Now, at times, hold on, I'll make a new class known as login test. Now suppose I want to run this test, but every time I run this test, I want to run it with a different set of username and password. Okay, so what we do is that we use a two-dimensional array to supply the data inside the test case. Okay, so out here, we can have a two-dimensional array like this with some rows and some columns. Okay, the number of rows are equal to the number of times you want to run the test. Over here, I've got 4 rows. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means I want to run the test 4 times. And the number of columns are equal to number of parameters in the test. Say email, phone number, name, pin code. Okay, so each cell has an index. This is 0th row, 0th first 0th column. This is 0th row, first column, like this. Pretty obvious, you must be knowing about it. This is first row, 0th column. This is 1 comma 1. Okay, this is 2 comma 2. Right, so we put the data like this. In every row, the data for that particular test iteration is there. So you have this data provider annotation. By default, this function for data provider, it returns you a two-dimensional object array. Okay, if you want to run the test annotation, this test multiple times, the first step is that you have to build this data provider. Okay, with the two-dimensional object array. Right. The second step is that you have to put the data in this two-dimensional object array. You have to write object array data equals to new object array with say 3 rows and 2 columns. So you have the rows first and then the columns. So 3 rows, it means that I want to run the test 3 times, and 2 columns, it means that the test has got 2 parameters, say username and password. So you start filling up the rows, you start filling up your first row, 0, 0 is U1, P1, then 1 is U2, P2. Okay, then the third row is U3, P3. Right, so there are 3 rows. This is my first row, second row, third row. Every row has got 2 columns. So I've filled up the 2 columns as well. Right, and you write over here, return this function will return this two-dimensional array. So the first step is that you have to build the data provider. Second is that you have to fill the data. Generally, this data we don't hard code, we read it from some external file. Okay, and the third step is that you have to link this data provider with this particular test case. You have to tell the test that this is the data provider. So step 3 is linking test with data provider. So you'll have to write over here that the data provider for this test is, you give the function name. So your test will come to know that fine, this is my data provider. And the last thing, and the most important thing which people make mistake, the number of columns are 2. Okay, now when TestNG will run this thing, it will see that fine, this is the first set of data. So it has to run the test case with the first set of data. It has to pass the first set of data. So you have to give the number of columns, number of input parameters in the function, same as number of columns. Okay, you print the username and the password. So the username U1 will go in username, password P1 will go in password, and you print it like this. So when you run this, it will print, it will first send U1 P1 in the function, it will execute it, then U2 P2, and then U3 P3. TestNG will automatically come to know that fine, the data provider is get data. It will go in the data provider. It will find out that there are 3 rows of data. That means I have to execute this test 3 times, and it's got 2 columns. So that means first I have to execute it with this, then with this, then with this. So it first passes U1 into username, then P1 into password. Then it executes the next row and the next row. So it executes the test 3 times. You see that total test runs are 3. If you look at the result, you see first login test is executed with U1 P1, then U2 P2, then U3 P3. Okay, right. Now, if you go back to shopmobile.java, then till now we have seen test annotation, we have seen uh, at the rate data provider. Okay, there are few more annotations. Like for example, in shop mobile, if I give the annotation at the rate before test, okay, and I just print over here before test. Before test is another annotation, and I write at the rate after test. And print it. And when you run this code, okay, you will see that before test is executed before executing all the tests, and after test is executed after executing all the tests. No matter if the test is failing or passing, it really doesn't matter. These will definitely execute. Let me just comment this code. Okay, and run it again, you see that all the tests they get executed before that, before test is executed, and in the end after test. Now suppose you have to open a browser before running all the test cases. So you can open the browser, run all the tests on the same browser, and in the after test you can close the browser. Or maybe you want to establish a database connection with the database before running all the tests. So you can establish that, and in the end you can close that database connection. All right, fine. So there is a predefined order in which these execute. It doesn't matter that I can put after test even in the file. I can keep it before the before test, but the order is preserved. Again, if I run this, output will be same. Okay, so there is a predefined order for these annotations, and no matter where you keep them, that order is already always executed. Right. Similarly, I have another annotation at the rate before method. Okay. Public void and hold on. Right. And similarly, at the rate after method. Okay. And you import this and you print after method over here. So before method is executed before executing all the tests. Sorry, before test and after test we have seen. Okay, but before method and after method are executed before and after executing each and every test. This was my first test. This was my second test. This was my third test in this Java file. So before method and after method will be executed before and after executing the test case, no matter whether the test is failing, passing, okay, they will surely be executed. Okay, now suppose if I have to generate a different report for every test. So in before method, I can initialize the report for the test. And in after method, I can finalize and publish the report for that particular test case. Okay. Or maybe every test has to be executed on a different browser. So in before method, I can open the browser, and after method, I can make sure the browser is closed no matter if the test is passed or failed. Okay, so this way in every test, in before method, I can open a new browser. In after method, I can close that browser. Okay. So you have these three different Java files having different test cases, and you can run them individually. All right. You can also run them together in batch. Okay, it's very simple. You select all the three Java files. You right click, say TestNG, convert to TestNG, and finish. So you will see an XML configuration file being generated. Okay, and this is known as testng.xml. In this, you can mention all the Java files which you have to execute, and they will all be executed together. Okay, so this is test suite. Yours, whatever is your test suite name, you can mention over here, and then there is a test tag in which you can give the name of the test and the classes associated with the test. Now, in our case, we have got three different Java files, maybe having three different test cases. So what you can do is you can hold on. You can have three different tests mentioned over here. In the first test, I will keep the class name as shop mobile, and I can name this test as shop mobile test. This name can be anything, but this class name should be correct. Package name followed by the class name, capital and small letters will matter here. Okay. The second test is maybe say the login test, and the class associated with this is login test.
Ashish,
Okay.
what is the purpose of making three classes separately when these classes were already there in this XML?
These three classes, they represent three different test cases. First test is login test, second test
Okay.
is your shop mobile, and the third can be say uh, it was soft assertions. I'll just call it soft. So the order in which you mention the test cases in this file from top to bottom, they're executing in they'll be executed in that order. Okay. So when you run this XML, right click, run as TestNG test suite. So it will run. It will say total runs are 7, passes are 6, failures are 1. If you look at the results, you will see everything over here. All the reports, results, everything will come up. You can also generate HTML reports. I'll talk about those as well, maybe tomorrow. Okay. But
Ashish, in the output, why every test is running for like 3 times?
sometimes that happens in TestNG. Hold on. You'll run it again. You see that now. It displays like this sometimes, but it's actually not running 3 times. It's just running once. Okay.
Okay. Mhm.
At sometimes it displays it like this, right? So that's it. We'll meet tomorrow. I'll upload the recording. The first thing which I'm going to do right now is going to fix recordings, right? So, all right then. Yep. We'll meet tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Hi
Yeah.
Ashish, I
Ashish,
have a
can I ask you a
question.
question?
Yeah.
I have already downloaded STSNG 7.2. So is gonna any problem for me for future?
Not